All right, good evening and welcome everyone to the monthly meeting this August 2nd, 2022 for the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities. We really appreciate everyone being here tonight. As usual, we have a robust agenda hitting on a bunch of different topics tonight, and I think you're gonna find them all of interest. We've got we started with some, per request, some information about the new real estate law, and then we just had some good news about a grant that we put in the schedule. But to go through here in order, so after the welcome and some reminders, we're going to jump right into one of our topics tonight and an ask of the group, and that is related to the proposed Measure V, that is the Wildfire Prevention, Emergency Services, and Disaster Readiness proposal that's out there. We're going to then move on to the monthly resource spotlight with Susan, and then get back to regularly scheduled order of operations with our community partner reports. So for our OES partners, CAL FIRE, Fire Safe Council partners, we're putting you at the end because there might be some questions that will come up in that Measure B conversation where you can answer what you might have already wanted to talk about in that community partner report. So we're doing that. And then monthly education spotlight, and sorry, huge typo that I'm just now catching. We are not talking about homeowners insurance today in California. All apologies. If you look at the subtopics there, we've got a lot going on. We've got Craig from the county talking about some microgrant opportunities that hopefully many of you are already working on or have already submitted. Joseph Santos, CAL FIRE, talking about AB 38 from the perspective of inspections for those for sale homes and properties. We've got I see Teresa with the amazing backdrop there from the Realtors. She is the legislative chair for the Nevada County Board of Realtors, talking about AB 38, giving us a realtor's perspective and a legislative update. And then finally, we've got Pat Leach from the Fire Safe Council, talking about action plans and Firewise community recertification. We know we got a whole lot of you with recertifications due in November. So we're going to just hit on it briefly in this session. And then we're going to give Pat and her team the floor a little bit more time in October to get into the nuts and bolts of what that's going to require. And then if there's time, we will open the floor for community forum. And then just going to ask all of you to mark your calendar for that first Tuesday of September for our next meeting. So with that, we're going to get right into this proposed measure. So we talked about this a couple meetings past. I believe in May, we had Caleb Dardick come in and speak during that hybrid meeting. We then had vice chair of this group, Nick, take a vote in our last meeting requesting that we be allowed to represent this group at the county meeting. And tonight we want to get into some of the details as they are becoming more publicly available. So what are we talking about here? So the measure that is being proposed is a 1/2 cent sales tax. It is countywide and applies to anyone spending money within our county. So this would include all of the tourists passing through the town of Truckee during ski season. This would include everyone else who just comes up to Grass Valley and Nevada City for hot summer nights, Victorian Christmas, etc. So again, it is something that is going to be raising money not just from us locals, but also from anyone passing through here. It is estimated to raise $12 million per year from that sales tax. There's we'll put that in perspective here in a little bit. Now, what is it not? So this is not a parcel tax. This has nothing to do with that check you cut to the county twice per year or have impounded through your mortgage for home and property tax. This is not that. It is a sales tax, and that sales tax is not applied to groceries. One of the criticisms of sales tax, if we're taking a fair approach to this, is that they do tend to punish lower income populations who spend a larger percentage of their income on things like groceries. So that in its current form is going to be excluded, so that you will not be paying tax on your food that's purchased for groceries. Why is this being put forward? To be honest, we asked for it. So there was some surveys done, and by some, I mean 999 of them. Residents were polled within Nevada County, asking where they wanted, if they would be in favor of this measure, and if so, where do they want it spent? And mid 60-something% came back in support of this. Additionally, to even get to that point, many of you in this meeting, month after month, continue to ask great questions, and you escalate those to your county supervisors. You escalate those to the city councils, where some of you live in our incorporated areas. And you bring them up on this meeting. You talk about things like we'll see on this next page. The county is listening. They hear you that you want safer evac roads. So what some of these funds are going to be spent for is, with the funds that could be raised, 140 miles per year of roadside vegetation management could be completed. To put this in perspective, on a normal year, if such exists, the county can afford to clear approximately 50 miles of road. With some grant money that, of course, is very sporadic, and for those of you who have been around this kind of the grant world long enough, for the nonprofit sector, you know that there are ups and there are downs based on the economy and just different grant cycles. So some years they've been able to clear as many as 120 miles, other years not a whole lot. Again, baseline is 50 just from normal county budget. This would allow 140 miles to be cleared. Boy, you guys have been screaming for this second one. Year-round green waste drop-off. What a great event that has been for our community, right? Unfortunately, just funding and logistics have limited that to some select weeks of the year, and we are looking to push that to make it a year-round event. So that whether it's winter apocalypse again, or just another year of green things growing on your property that you're willing to cut down to build that defensible space, you will have a place to get rid of it. Removing flammable brush and shaded fuel breaks. This is a big thing. So to put this measure in perspective, what this measure really isn't looking to do, with exception, but in general, we're not looking for little clearing projects. Again, I'm going to jump to the next 2 bullet points down and say that yes, there will be some grant assistance for vulnerable populations. That is our low income, elderly and disabled populations who simply lack the means or the ability to clear properties on their own. There will be some grants available for those folks. But again, going back up to this removing flammable brush and creating more shaded fuel breaks, we are looking to get big projects done. I mean, we know that our crews, ranging from, the local engines, in Grass Valley to, any one of the CAL FIRE stations, they are really good at putting out the single involved vehicle, right? They excel at being able to put out an engulfed single home. But the concern that many of us talk about a lot in these meetings is what happens when the big one comes? What happens when the next Dixie fire is blowing our way, when the next Camp Fire is on Nevada County soil? They're dealing with another one up in Klamath right now. So these shaded fuel breaks, like the Ponderosa clearing project, are one way that the fire scientists that you've heard in these meetings are saying that we can use to, help give our first responders, give those firefighters a chance to combat those bigger fires. CAL FIRE has identified, I'll let Chief correct me if I'm wrong here, but they have identified 8 projects to be done, to be completed, that would really help our county. One of those has been funded thus far. Another study done by some more data wonks like myself, not that I was part of the project, but I just mean some nerds like me, they completed some analysis that showed in different bands going out from Grass Valley what could be done to protect and reduce the potential catastrophic, loss of Grass Valley proper. And $17 million worth of clearing, they estimated, would reduce the probability of that happening in the next, I believe it was a 100-year study, by a solid, it was low 20-something%, and it depended on where they put it to the northeast, southwest. But, again, $12 million per year, 17 million, so, a couple years perhaps worth of this budget that's dedicated to the shaded fuel breaks, could make a measurable impact to the resiliency for Grass Valley proper. Bullet point 4, a citizen hand crew. I think this is an exciting idea. I know when I was up at Campfire, I could barely use my phone talking to emergency services, which I was a part of it for that event, because my phone was going, just ringing off the hook of people who wanted to come help. Similar for the river fire. But the reality is we just can't take all of you with strong backs and shovels and put you to work without some training. Yet the reality is, in the past they've used some prison crews with great success. I know most of the people that I've heard from that are running the fire crews have been happy with them, but it's just not a practical resource anymore. So, just like we have civilian volunteers for the white shirts at the sheriff's office who work the parade, or the purple shirts who work at the fairgrounds to take care of all your animals and horses. The idea is that we build a civilian crew out that can help support during catastrophes. Already mentioned next point, grant assistance to vulnerable populations. And then the final point, which tickles my heart as someone whose day job is a financial advisor with a background, an academic background in economics and data analytics, that we can use these funds to secure larger grants, because many of these state and federal grants require matching funds, meaning there might be $1 million out there, but if you're not able to contribute, a 25% match and come up instantly with, $250,000, you don't get the big bucks. So this, this $12 million that could come annually from this would allow us to leverage that up to some number significantly greater than that. So again, these are the big things that are currently on the table, and ideas that have been pushed out for Measure V. Obviously, there's much more out there, and these are still up for some debate. But just to give you an idea of where that 1/2 of 1 cent sales tax might go. There will be accountability for this. So this is a general tax measure, but it doesn't mean that it can be just spent at the discretion of elected officials or career bureaucrats. There will be regular audits. There always is with county funds. That should come as no shock. There is going to be a technical advisory board that will be divided geographically with representation on the east and west side of the state. That, again, the technical advisory board would be those experts that, have the inside knowledge of where money is best spent to give the biggest bang for our buck, which is different from citizen oversight, where each supervisor's district will be able to appoint someone, as well as 2 members at large for a 7-member citizens oversight panel that will be able to keep an eye on this and report out to the public. Additionally, there will be a public dashboard where you can see where funds are spent, how many miles of road really are being, having the vegetation managed. And I don't have all the details as to what analytics might be provided, but if anyone has strong opinions as this thing comes together, I'm getting the impression that the county and their GIS team, the people who create a lot of these things, would be open to hearing that. So those are the big picture things. I would encourage everyone to just think conceptually, like, can you get behind these ideas? Are they perfect? No, I've yet to see a policy at the city, county, state or federal level that is a perfect policy. So I'm just going to encourage everyone, as you have questions about this, to think about, like, does this put us forward? You know, is there, you know, is this going to improve the mission of this group, and move things forward? So, you know, I'm seeing some comments here, and we are going to open this up to comment, but, you know, I'm just going to beg everyone, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this, because if you're waiting for the perfect policy, it ain't going to happen, and the big money won't come until we have a couple thousand houses that are burnt to the ground and FEMA has taken over management of our county. So we're going to open this up for Q&A in a second, but I want to you know, just kind of finish with a couple of thoughts here, and that is the ask that we have of the county here, and those of you that are willing to participate, and that is at the end of this session, if you're willing to do so and support this measure, we are asking you to, you know, show up to the Board of Supervisors meeting and speak during public comment. It's 1:30 Tuesday, August 9th. Public comments get 3 minutes. So we're just asking they're going to ask you to state your name and where you live. Say up front that you support this measure to be on the ballot. Just make one point for why it's important to you. You could quote anything you've heard from this group. I mean, we've heard from fire scientists, foresters. We have heard from our own local, you know, battalion chiefs. You know, anything that kind of, you know, it could be your support for green waste, and then close by asking the supervisors just to put it on the ballot. Because the only thing up for question in the next couple of weeks is, should this be on the ballot? And we just want to get this thing on the ballot so we can have solid public discourse on it. What I'm going to ask in the chat, and then as we open this up for Q&A, is just as a reminder that the mission of this organization, the coalition, promotes fire safety through advocacy, education, and community involvement with other stakeholders interested in working towards stronger fire safety practices. This measure would allow for stronger fire safety practices, and it is the job of this coalition to, you know, be a voice to advocate for you. So on that, yes, it is a tax measure. So if you are of the mindset and the belief that all taxes suck, we can support that. But what we're going to ask is to remind you that, you know, you didn't come to my day job office where I stare at taxes about, you know, 10 hours a week. You came here for us to fight for you, and that is what we are doing here. So with that, I'm going to pull up the chat here and address a couple of these, and let other public administrators do the same. So if I could get, I see Heidi Hall in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. I know Caleb is here. I know Josh is here from the county. So negative comments about money being added to the general fund and not having guarantees. Hopefully we answered that there is lots of oversight for this. Again, through the technical advisory board, through the dashboard, through the citizens oversight group. So that is out there. And do you have actual text of the proposal? Caleb, is that being released Thursday, or is that out there already?
Thursday at noon, as part of the agenda packet.
Perfect. Would like to see administrative cost limitations for this sales tax. So what do we have? Is this to fund a bunch of bureaucrats' vacation funds, or how does this work?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Again, I just thank you, Scott. I appreciate hearing the presentation, especially since I've been giving so many. It's a it's a relief to get to listen, and especially moved by what our intent was really to recognize and be responsive to what we've been hearing from the community, especially through this monthly forum, but through so many others like it. And to hear it reflected back that you feel like we're on track, that what we're bringing to the Board of Supervisors are the type of projects and at a scale and pace that you've been asking for is gratifying to hear. In terms of staffing, there are real costs to implement programs, and we really get that we want to keep those costs down. So we are not applying any overhead to this project. We're going to, and this will be in the staff report, so you'll be able to see this on Thursday. We will have to staff the new programs and projects. And so our estimate for new staffing is about the equivalent of 8 employees to implement a $12 million program year after year. So to the person who thought 10% is the max, that's great. We're only talking about 8.3%. And that, I think, is a big, so this is not going to supplant anything that you have today. This is all new services and programs, should the Board of Supervisors put this on the ballot and should the voters approve it.
Thanks so much, Caleb. Barry, I'm going to pronounce it, sure, it's probably mispronounced it, but yes, the name was changed, so don't worry, we're not going to credit nor penalize Brad for your comment here. So the comment, long, short, the word useless was used for clearing along the roadsides. Chief Matthias, if you're still there and able to unmute. So in terms of roadside clearing, could we maybe use the Brighton fire? I think we called it the Brighton fire, the one that was along the backside of Grass Valley proper there, and talk about the value of roadside clearing there.
Are you talking about the Bennett fire?
No.
Yes. Yes.
What was it? Do we call it Bennett?
Bennett.
I'm talking about the one that was right off of the McCourtney 20 interchange there.
Oh.
Which is absolutely nowhere near Bennett. But where the trees were limbed up and we started evacuations, but you guys snubbed that thing out in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that was, you're talking about the roadside clearance around Highway 20 right there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific example of how that particular fire was affected by the roadside clearance, but I will tell you that Caltrans did a really good job of cleaning up along Highway 20, and they're continuing to do that. And anytime you reduce the fuels along the side of the roadway, it does a couple of things. Not only does it allow people to evacuate in a more safe manner, but it also reduces the amount of fire that's going to travel from a trailer dragging a chain, or a vehicle that catches on fire, or a flat tire that causes some sparks, or a catalytic converter that's shooting out parts. So all that stuff contributes to a safer and more efficient way to extinguish the fire. I think that one of the points that you're trying to make is the reduction of fuels and allowing people to evacuate more. So yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the comment that it was a waste of time and whatever it says there, but a waste of time and money. I think anytime you reduce fuels, I think you're getting some advantages from that. Could we do more? I think we can. It's just, it's a matter of time and money. So I haven't been out Pasquale to see exactly what they're talking about, so I can't speak to that exactly. I'm sorry about that.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, and Barry, again, I would just ask, if this is advancing things forward and we're doing what the experts are telling us to do, like let's give it a shot. I know also Pasquale is loaded with personal residence and private property, so there might be some limitations there. So I'll hit a couple of these. So from Ray, we've got, are there takeaways from the Paradise Fire that would help with priorities? 100%. And some of those, I mean, many of those are baked right into this already. So when we talk about the large shaded fuel breaks and stopping those bigger fires, this is a case study for that. Evacuation routes specifically, we heard from a couple survivors from that. So if you didn't get a chance, you might want to go back. We had one meeting about 2 months ago and another one last August, I believe, August 2021, survivor stories. And there were a couple survivors last year in the 2021 edition from the campfire there in Paradise that told their story. Additionally, in both of those meetings, we had Dr. Colleen Milligan a PhD forensic anthropologist specializing in fire victim patterns that led some insights. And yes, there is absolutely overlap with those lessons and those major initiatives that I shared a little bit ago. From Virginia, how would this intersect with the Fire Safe Council? First thing, so again, poor marketing, and I've apologized like every month for the last 2 years about this, but we are the coalition of Firewise communities, the unincorporated, unfunded nonprofit that represents all of you. The Fire Safe Council is the nonprofit that has funding and is one of a handful of organizations that runs projects for the county. They would simply be any one of a number of vendors that would bid out to do the work as part of the procurement process. So it could intersect with them on some initiatives. It might not. It just depends on if they actually win any of the bids. Elizabeth, gosh, great question. My apologies. Where is the meeting? Rood Center in the supervisor's chambers. So that is, again, 1:30 next Tuesday, August 9th, at the Rood Center there in Nevada City, up the hill there in the board chambers, which is there'll be a steady flow of people walking in there, but it's the main room right in front of you when you go up there. And
Scott,
Caleb put that in there. So
Kristen has her, yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, Susan?
I'm sorry, I was just going to bring Kristen to your attention if you didn't see that.
Yeah, so Kristen, what do you got for us?
Hi, Scott, and thanks to everyone for the work you're doing. I just want to kind of do a quick point on my own journey on this idea of a half-cent tax. Initially, I think most people think, what's in it for me, right? And so I went that route. I head up the You Bet Firewise group, and I'm thinking, gosh, well, we're not in, the downtown, or we might not get our fair share and all that kind of thing. But then I quickly kind of backed off of that and realized 2 points. One is, there's kind of an overtime proposition. If we've got 12 million year over year, the high impact projects will get taken care of. And in time, perhaps some of the smaller communities will get some attention. But then really where I netted out was rising tide floats all boats. And regardless of where the efforts get put, I'm comfortable with the oversight that's being put in place and realizing that the more work that gets done in the county as a whole, the better off we'll be in each Firewise community. So I went from, gosh, how much do I get, to this is awesome. So I just want to say thank you to Caleb and the county and you guys for really listening to what our needs are.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. As mentioned by plenty of others before, fire doesn't understand jurisdictional authority. It doesn't care who your supervisor is, what your zip code is, or where you put up nice gates to your neighborhood. And again, those bigger shaded fuel breaks in some of these projects will hopefully help that, whether they are inside whatever you consider your in group of cohort there and people you surround yourself with. We appreciate your comments and recognizing that. I think we'll throw one more out here. I see in the chat, who ultimately manages and directs the program dollars. I believe that is OES. Caleb, Paul, or Craig, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I can take that, Scott. The OES staff will manage the TAC process, the Technical Advisory Committee process, and they will develop the annual recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. But so in terms of management, it'll be the Office of Emergency Services. In terms of the ultimate decision, it'll be the Board of Supervisors. But we are really looking and going to lean on a professional TAC, Technical Advisory Committee. And the goal being that we're going to prioritize getting our planning and planning documents up to date and really be able to work to the plan. So we're not, jostling for projects year after year, but really looking to implement the priority projects that would be in a community wildfire protection plan, for example. And that's what many counties have done with their, wildfire tax measures. They've committed to getting a plan done and then working to implement the plan. And then rather than rely on grant funding to update plans, which has been the case, committing to doing the planning on a regular basis so they're constantly kept up to date and serve as a roadmap.
Caleb. Thanks for the response. Adrian, thanks so much for the question. Peter Mason, one of our other volunteers in this community in a different capacity, one of our ham operators, radio operators, has a question. Would green waste allow disposal of large logs by private tree companies who currently do not have any place to dispose of this material? Might be getting in the weeds on that one, I'll be honest, Peter, but anyone have an answer on that one? Peter, we're going to get back to you on that one. Oh, Craig?
Scott, I can jump in.
All right.
There's a bunch of different options when we're talking about green waste. Air curtain burners are an option for bigger logs and things like that. That's actually what they're made for. So we're looking at options related to that, but there's all kinds of different ways you can tackle this. So yes, there are different options for that. A lot of that is looking for sites, how much it is to manage that year round or during certain times of the year, but there are options.
Thanks so much, Craig. And then, sorry, we got a couple more who, the question about a sunset. So there's talks, will this be in perpetuity or is there a sunset? I'm just going to say if that's important to you, that might be a good thing to bring up at the supervisors meeting, as I believe it is still up for discussion.
Yeah, that's correct, Scott. The ordinance as written and that's being brought forward to the board is without a sunset or until repealed by voters. But there is quite the board members are certainly hearing a lot from stakeholders who want to see a sunset, and certainly I can appreciate those arguments. This work, you know, is some argue is 100 years in arrears, and so it's going to take a while to move the needle. But you know, we're not philosophically against sunsets. As staff, the library measure has had a 15-year sunset, and certainly there's plenty of other measures that do. Often a sunset is used the first time to sort of secure trust, and people see that there's a track record, and then agencies may go out for a renewal or an extension. So yeah, it's just something we're thinking about. Some of the recommendations for sunset have been really short. And when you think about what it takes to get some of these projects up and running, if you look at the Ponderosa Fuel project, you know, that was a year in planning and 2 years to implement. That was just phase one. So I think it's important to understand that big landscape level projects of the type that we're hoping to see in Nevada County, it's an investment, and where we've really been short of resources is in the maintenance and the ongoing sustainability of these projects. So when you look at our roadside vegetation clearance, we've been averaging 50 to 60 miles a year. When we got CAL FIRE grants, and thank you, CAL FIRE, we jumped up to 100 or so for a year or two, and now we're dropping back down. And so grants are amazing, but they're not a sustainable solution. Having a locally controlled source of funds does provide that sustainability and ongoing resource. But again, we're definitely hearing a lot of interest and demand for a sunset. So it is something that I would encourage individuals on this call to think about and perhaps to comment on in their letters or public testimony.
Thanks, Caleb. And we are going to, again, just, oh, sorry, one last question, said that 6 times. Adrian, we're only going to answer this because we love your picture and we like looking at water this time of year. Yeah, there is, completely unrelated to this, there has been conversations about biomass going on from a completely different organization for a long time now. If you want to connect with that group, email me individually and I will connect you with them. So with that, again, we're just closing saying, like, you all spend so much time hardening your homes and coming to these meetings and educating yourself. We really are asking that if you're in support of this measure, or if not, you know, your opinion's important, please show up next Tuesday. Please hang out for an hour or so and use your 3 minutes to say what you're thinking on this topic and your support of it. Again, we're just trying to put it on the ballot so we can have more meaningful conversations like this and engage more people in debate on the topic. There is an email there at the bottom if you want to grab a quick picture of that, if you want to send an email that will be submitted as a public comment for that meeting. And with that, we do need to press on, but you're always welcome to email me and we can follow up with you later. So with that, we are going to move on. Susan Rogers, Monthly Resource Spotlight, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I am going to, while I'm sharing my screen here, I want to reiterate what Scott said about how it's just to get it on the ballot, and then there will be 3 months for people to ask these kinds of questions and get your questions answered, and then vote however you want in November. And also, this entire thing is speaking as someone who's been active and an officer of the coalition since 2017. This is what people have been asking for at coalition meetings since 2017. The road clearing. What do I do with my stuff? I can't afford to go to the dump. I need free green waste. All of it is in response to what we've been asking for the last 5 years. So moving right along. This document is going to be on the website in a few days. I tried to upload it today so I could show it to you. But if you were at last month's meeting, where I demonstrated how did I find out about the Rice's wildfire, the Rice's fire, and I told you about the text that I got, and then how to figure out if the wind is blowing in your direction. I made a handout about it. And so that is going to be on the website, and it's going to be here once we fix the upload problem, which I ran into today. So you will, when we send out the link to the video about tonight's meeting, I will let everybody know that we were able to get that on the website, and then you can run with that. The other things that are new on the website, we have a new wildfire home retrofit guide, thanks to Joanne Feitz-Kaufman, the fire scientist. It's similar to the references we already gave you from the Insurance Institute about all the great things you can do to your roof edges and all of these things. This one is from the University of Nevada at Reno. It's the one that Pat Leach and Joanne Feitz tell people about. So it is now here in this section under Best of the Best Resources, right above all of similar kinds of information from the Insurance Institute. And then on our advocacy and action page, if you can't remember anything that came for tonight about where is the meeting and how can you submit your comments by phone or whatever, go to our advocacy and action page and click that, and you'll get the PDF, which you'll have the information on page 2 of all of that. And then the last thing is on our rules and enforcement page, and this ties into our program tonight on AB 38, which is the legislation about how if you're going to sell your house, you now have a requirement to do certain kinds of disclosure about how much defensible space requirement is needed before you sell. And so if you scroll down to codes, standards, and ordinances on the rules and enforcement page, this has been here all along. We've got the hazardous vegetation ordinance link for unincorporated Nevada County and what's there. The code to PC, the link to PC 4221, PRC, pardon me, but its requirements are incorporated into the Nevada County ordinance. And then the city regulations are different. So I've got links to the weed abatement ordinance and City of Nevada City ordinance. And Joe Santos from CAL FIRE will be telling us tonight about how the AB 38 rule relates to any of the normal kind of ordinances that are in effect. So that's it for me, Scott, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Susan. Let's press on to our partner reports. Chief Matthias, kick it off for us.
Thanks, Jim Matthias from CAL FIRE. And Scott, I'm really glad that you're on tonight because I wanted to ask you a question after I looked at your email. You're already shaking your head. I just wanted to know, because you appear to be an expert, what is not very heavy and blue?
I don't know, Jim. What is very heavy and blue?
Not very heavy. It's
not very
blue.
heavy and blue.
Light blue, Scott. Light blue. Light blue. You're welcome. Okay. Moving on. So we'll talk a little bit about the activity that's kind of happening in our North State right now. You saw the monsoonal moisture move through. And if I would have been here last month, what I would have told you is that we didn't have very much rain in January and February, and that contributed to a lot of our larger fuels, vegetation being very dry. And then we had a lot of moisture that came through, and that allowed our, a little bit of moisture to go into the brush, but really their green up period didn't really happen until it was very late, and it was followed by some very hot weather. So we didn't have that long green up period with a lot of rain, and that contributed to some of our larger fuels being very dry. And then what we did get is a very good grass crop underneath that. And then it was super hot for a long time, like it's been for the last few weeks. And yesterday we had a little bit of monsoonal moisture. Some of you might even have seen some raindrops coming down. And what that means is we had that unstable air mass, which allows molecules to move above and about and create some electricity. Luckily, we didn't get any lightning from that, but we did get a little bit of that monsoonal moisture. When you hear that coming through, that's the danger. And what we have going on right now is we'll talk about the activity from the very beginning of January 1st until now and compare it to last year. And we're down, good news, we're down 52 acres from this time last year, and we're down 34 fires in total in the Nevada Placer unit since January up until today, this date, I'm sorry, it was yesterday, August 1st of last year to this year. So we're down a little bit, that's good news. We have a pretty large fire working up to the north of us, up on the Klamath National Forest, and it's burning into some of the state and private lands, called the McKinney Fire. It had so far 2 fatalities that have been reported officially. It's over 56,165 acres. That was this morning at 0% contained. CAL FIRE in the Nevada Placer unit, so far we've sent some overhead positions to that fire. We have 7 of our CAL FIRE engines out, and then 2 of our dozers. So we still have 17 engines back here at home protecting you folks. And then we backfilled our dozers with some dozers from Southern California that are CAL FIRE dozers that are here staged to cover us. The Oak Fire that you've been kind of hearing about down in Mariposa County, the Sierra National Forest, that one's kind of winding down, although it was a little over 19,244 acres with 65% containment. So a lot of stuff still happening there, but it looks like they're getting the upper hand on that one. The other big news that we're dealing with is our hand crews. We still have 2 at Washington Ridge that are in the unit, so they're available for response. COVID kind of took a run through our Placer Center, so we're down to 1 hand crew out of that Placer Center down in Christian Valley, and our California National Guard hand crew out of Nevada City is still going strong. So our big worries right now, folks, Jeff kind of put up some of the fire triangle. I'm going to talk about what spreads wildfire: fuel, weather, and topography. I've talked about it a bunch of times. The fuel is very dry. The topography can be very steep. The great example is a Rice's fire. And what we're worried about now is the weather, low humidities, and we're starting to get into the unstable air masses, which will push air around and give us some wind events. And so that's what we really have to keep our eyes on. We've had plenty of trouble with spot fires reaching out. I mean, if you were in the Rough and Ready area, there we had some spot fires coming off of that fire, the Digger fire, and we had a ton of spot fires at the Rice's fire as well. So that seems to be the issue right now, and we're just gonna kind of hold our breath when the winds come. But so far, all of our aircraft is in place and available, and that's the end of the report for me.
Cool, thanks so much. Nevada County Consolidated Fire. Is Patrick Mason, are you with us tonight? No, Patrick Mason or anyone else? Let's go to OES. Paul or Craig?
Yeah, good evening, Scott. Paul Cummings from Nevada County OES. We've got a lot of our team on actually tonight. You've already heard from Caleb, and we have our OES director Craig on. I think we probably announced that at the last meeting that Craig was recently hired in, and it's part of our growth, so we're really excited there. And then Josh White also helping us out tonight. So a couple quick updates from us. OES is continuing to lean into that, engaging the public where they are on their time around wildfire. We really want to keep the public ready as we're in this peak of fire season. It's going to continue to get more challenging through August and September. So we're out tonight with OES is out at the National Night Out event at Pioneer Park. So that's pretty fun and exciting. We're actually going to be down at the Washington Chicken Feed on Saturday. So go check that out if you haven't seen that yet. Let's see where else. The fair next week. I mean, I'm sure you're all as surprised as I am that it's fair time next week. Crazy. So the Sheriff's Office, Search and Rescue, OES will be out there engaging the public, looking to see many of you as we continue through the summer. Our AFN grant is gaining traction and moving forward. I don't want to steal all of Jamie Jones' thunder, but we are hoping to get to the point where we can actually start to implement the treatments as part of phase 1. And then we're still seeking applicants for phase 2. Contact the Fire Safe Council if you or anybody you know or somebody within your community you think can take advantage of that grant program to do defensible space clearing around people with disabilities and older adults' homes. Let's see what else. We were awarded an evacuation study grant from CAL FIRE. So we're working on the contract for that. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months, we'll actually be able to start to implement that. We really hope to use those funds, again, thank you CAL FIRE, to identify the key areas that we really need to put more planning into around evacuations. And then it'll help inform things like, should we be doing road widening? Where are the key intersections, things like that. So you'll all be part of that as we engage the community around that grant. So stand by for more. Thank you, everyone. Caleb and Scott for mentioning the presentation that many of us will be making next week, Tuesday. Again, please come out and listen in and provide support or your concerns on both sides. We just want to hear from you either way and have our public engaged around that topic for the measure. I think the last thing that I've got is I'd like to introduce our new County Wildfire Coordinator, Alessandra Zambrano. She's on here on Zoom. Recently hired again as part of a State Fire Safe Council and CAL FIRE grant. So thank you, CAL FIRE and State Fire Safe Council. And I'll let you, Alessandra, just give a quick overview of your role and how you hope to interface with all of these folks.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So it's really nice to meet you all. I am very excited to be the new County Wildfire Coordinator. I also am recently new to the county. I moved to Truckee in October, so I'm really excited to have a chance to learn from you guys about, because you guys are the local experts on the ground. What are the opportunities and the ways we can partner and have collaboration so that we can improve our wildfire resiliency across the county. I'm really looking to coordinate on hopefully updating our CWPP and facilitating access to funding and resources, but also working with you guys to identify some potential mitigation projects. So I will be dropping my information in the chat and feel free to send me an email. And yeah, I'm just very happy and excited to be here.
Thanks, Alessandra. And Alessandra comes to us. Her previous experience was actually writing CWPPs as a contractor. So she is a huge asset to Nevada County and to all of you and your communities. So please reach out to her, leverage her, ask her your questions. She's also got a master's degree in forestry. So we're very excited to have her on the OES team. And we hope that all of the Firewise communities will leverage her experience as well. That's all I've got, Scott.
That's a lot, and we appreciate it. So thanks to everyone from OES, the Office of Emergency Services, for being here. And then I also see a full house from Fire Safe Council tonight. So Billy, Pat, Jamie, who's got the mic? Don't all jump forward at once.
We're trying to be polite. All right, this is Billy. I guess I'll jump in. I know Pat has a presentation coming up in a moment. I believe we also have Don and Pete from the board on the meeting. So Don or Pete, if one of you would like to do the update, let me know.
No, go ahead, Billy.
Okay. We are super excited that the fair is right around the corner. You'll see the Fire Safe Council at gate 5. We'll be in our usual booth space right there next to the gate at the gazebo where the Forest Service and CAL FIRE have their pre-designated spaces. We are also going to be at the KNCO gazebo, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. So you'll get to hear us broadcasting live from the fair, whether you're at the fair or driving around in your car. So that's pretty exciting. We are really happy to announce that we signed our contract with CAL FIRE for the grant we were awarded this year for chipping and green waste. There are lots of people who are really looking forward to updates for that program. All I can tell you at the moment is bear with us. We signed the contract agreement, but we don't actually have the funds in hand yet. So we'll be working out those details and making announcements as we move through the end of summer and fall. Access and functional needs work is launching next week. We're really excited about that. We have a lot of folks who've been very patiently waiting for a very long time, and we couldn't be more excited to get out there and see those people and get that work done for them. With that work, we also have loads of space. As Paul mentioned, there is a ton of space available for new applicants. Anyone who even thinks they could be close to low income as a senior citizen or as a person with a disability, please reach out to the Fire Safe Council. You might be surprised how many people are qualified that don't believe they previously were qualified for the program. There's a lot happening. We have a lot of growth happening. Kate Benton as our new outreach coordinator. A lot of folks have met her at community events. She's not on the meeting tonight because she had a very long day in Truckee today. We're excited to have her on board. Lots of other growth happening here as well. And I feel like I've been talking for way too long, so I'm gonna stop now.
All right, thanks for the update, Billy. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to our monthly education spotlight here. We've got 4 speakers tonight, and we're going to keep things plugging along here. So from the Office of Emergency Services, speaking to microgrant opportunities, we've got Craig Griesbach. Could you tell us what's going on? Sounds like a big opportunity here.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, for having me. And just a quick introduction, Craig Griesbach, Director of Emergency Services, now on week 4 in my position, so newly appointed. Excited to talk to you today about Microgrant program. We were on here one of the previous meetings prior to this program being kicked off. But now that it's live, wanted to circle back with you and give you some resources and information and share more of this opportunity. I don't have a fancy presentation or anything. I'll try to be quick and easy here. So really, thanks for having me. We've been working on this program the last couple months or several months. Seems like we started this conversation back in March, prior to me being in OES. Really, our team is really continuing looking for resources and opportunities to really provide those resources to the community that will improve emergency preparedness. Firewise communities are really that most valuable resource in my mind. Is really a lot of this is being done to improve safety in your communities by leveraging your personal resources and volunteerism efforts already. So the Microgrant program is funded by the League of California Community Foundations through the support of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. This is a $100,000 grant that funds 26 microgrants totaling $3,600 with the primary focus of clearing vegetation left behind by the winter storms. Some ideas of qualifying projects could include whether increased defensible space around multiple homes, removal of hazardous vegetation from private property, or a clearing of evacuation routes on private roadways. Again, this isn't an all-inclusive list, just to give you some examples of potential qualifying projects. Grants have basic qualifying factors, including that the properties are located in Nevada County and they're within an NFPA recognized Firewise community. There's a simple grant application that's being facilitated on the Sierra Business Council website, and we'll post that link in the chat shortly. There's also an FAQ posted online regarding this grant. We'll link that in the chat as well. That's on our website regarding most of the questions we've been getting asked and answered. The application period is open now, so it opened on July 18th and it will close Monday, August 15th at 5 p.m. Our goal with the microgrant program is really to give you additional resources. Although the grants are small, they can be mighty, just like the Firewise communities are. I think that's an important thing to have, even though they are $3,600. How can we leverage those and be innovative with these projects? We're excited to see what type of projects are submitted and what we can learn from those, and how really they are implemented and concluded as a part of this program, as we continue to look for resources for Firewise communities in the future, and we can kind of build on this, even though it is small and mighty right now. As I mentioned, we'll be posting the information and the links, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat and we can answer them as the meeting moves forward. Also put my contact information in the chat. If you don't have it already, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I like to think I'm very responsive and accessible, so feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the OAS team. We have a great team here. I'm happy to be a part of this, and working on the challenges with y'all.
Thanks so much, Craig. Can you just once again state for us, what are the deadlines we're working with for applications?
So the deadline is Monday, August 15th at 5 p.m. For submitting your application. And the application is fairly simple. It's essentially like a page and a half, very straightforward. We've been getting some basic questions, but it's pretty simplistic. We were trying to create as easy and streamlined of a process as we could to get this money out to the different Firewise communities.
Great, and that is worth emphasizing. So many of you have applied for grants in the past or have heard the frustrations from those who have. This is not a 20-page grant application where you submit financials and the CV of interested parties. This is, again, was that 3 pages, did I hear?
It's like a page and a half.
Okay, I'm grossly overstating the complexity. So a page and a half. Again, this is in response to the requests that have come from these meetings month over month where, again, you all want to do the right thing. You're all trying to do the right thing, but we're just coming up a little bit short. We need those funds to bring a chipping crew out. You know, you might be good at, running the weed whipper, but you need someone to run saw. You might be good at running saw, but you can't quite, get those big trees out of the ravine that came down in the winter storm. Just all those projects that are just a little bit beyond your skill, a little bit beyond your budget. Again, get together with those neighbors and put this together. This is basically free money. So please, let's not leave it on the table. We've been asking for it for a while. Let's get some of those applications in. Craig, if you could unmute one more time here. Where are we at in the process? Like, have we seen some interest and some uptick, or do we need to be a little bit more proactive with these communities and soliciting for some apps?
So I apologize if my microphone is a little bit faint. A couple of people were messaging me there, so I'll try to speak up. We've seen a lot of interest in this. I can't remember exactly how many applications we have currently or that are in draft form right now, but we've been getting a ton of questions. But the more the merrier. Please spread the word. The more applications, even if they don't get funded, it will give us ideas for future programs and resources. So don't be shy, spread the word. If you have any questions, reach out. Like I said, the more the merrier. Great.
And I'm going to pull a couple of questions from the chat here while we've got you. If there are not sufficient number of certified Firewise communities, could some of our communities in training apply?
As it sits right now, it has to be a certified NFPA certified Firewise community to qualify.
All right. Great question, Sandy. Sorry, we can't sneak you in there. And then from Paulette, are there any tax implications for individuals who submit and receive the microgrant funding?
So we've been getting that question off and on, and right now we're still reviewing that. The Sierra Business Council is planning on working with each successful applicant to figure out exactly a solution to that question moving forward, but they're actively working on it as part of their team. They've dealt with this before with other programs and figured out a path forward that didn't have punitive participants.
Great. All right. thanks so much. Again, please, this, this is money for projects for doing what many of you are already doing, and some of those clearing projects. So please take advantage of this. If you're a little unsure and you need some support, I know there's many members around the community that might help you with the application. But again, it is fairly straightforward, and I have a feeling most of you will be able to figure it out without much issue there. All right, so with that, we are going to press on. Up next is Joseph Santos to talk about AB 38 and inspections of for sale homes and properties. Joseph.
And while Joseph unmutes, I will share the screen to the website, and Joseph will be narrating while I'll be sharing the screen that he'll be referring to.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Joseph Santos. I'm the property sales inspector for the Nevada Yuba Placer unit. Currently, my role is to handle all the AB 38 inspections within Nevada, Yuba, Placer, and Sierra counties. So I've been the main contact regarding these inspections. Some background on me, I've been in CAL FIRE since 2015. I started off as a seasonal and worked my way up to this position, which I enjoy very much. I think, the work that we do really indirectly impacts the protection of property, life, and also the firefighters. So with that, we could transition to the website, Susan.
Mm-hmm. And
so how is defensible space affecting real estate? So last July 1st of 2021, there was a new law that was implemented, AB 38 or Assembly Bill 38. And this is under California Civil Code section 1102.19, which basically requires a seller or any seller in a very high or high fire hazard severity zone to obtain compliance with defensible space. There are stipulations in this law that allows, if the seller can't obtain compliance by the close of escrow, it does allow the seller and buyer to enter into a written agreement, basically passing responsibility over to the buyer. When that happens, the buyer has 1 year preceding the close of escrow to get that compliance notice with defensible space. And then this is our civil code. If you like to read legal jargon, I mean, you could take a look at it. It's pretty intense. But it goes into great detail with all the specifics of AB 38. So if you like, you could take a look at that. Going down, so as I mentioned earlier, CAL FIRE implemented a fire hazard severity zone. Under the direction of CAL FIRE's director, we established this map that determines which areas are in a moderate, high, or very high fire hazard severity zone. And it also illustrates local jurisdictions, state responsibility areas, federal responsibility areas, and then it goes into great detail which property, if it resides in one of these zones. This is helpful for if a seller needs to know if their property needs to be in compliance with PRC 4291. They could look at this map. With our website, we have a mechanism to actually search and look up an individual's property. And you could click on it, Susan, thank you. So, excuse me, this is the fire hazard severity zone viewer. So it's very intuitive. If you look on the left-hand corner, there's binoculars. This is where you could search your individual address or another address to determine if you need this inspection completed. And I believe Susan's looking at hers. So this illustrates that this property is in a very high fire hazard severity zone. You could click on the legend, Susan, and it'll illustrate that this is in Alaray, but it's in a very high fire hazard severity zone. So this property would require an inspection if being sold.
And mention what LRA means, Joseph, please.
Yeah. So if you look at the legend on the bottom right, LRA is local responsibility area, basically meaning a local jurisdiction. Such an example would be Auburn City Fire, whatever municipality is in charge of that area.
In my case, it's the city of Grass Valley, right?
Yeah. SRA is state responsibility area. So basically everything that CAL FIRE encompasses. CAL FIRE has a responsibility to maintain the safety in these areas. So this is the area that if we get a request for an inspection in the SRA, we would go and handle it. And then last is the federal responsibility area. Excuse me. This is handled obviously by federal government. Yeah. So we could go back to the AB 38 webpage. So if we scroll down, we could see there's an illustration, Public Resource Code 4291 or local ordinance. So if there is a local ordinance, I always tell property owners, they could check. There's a mechanism on our website. You could search for these codes, or you could call your local fire department and ask if they have any local ordinance in effect. But basically, a local ordinance at the very bare minimum has to comply with PRC 4291. It can't be less. It could be more restrictive, but it can't be less restrictive. So sometimes you might see, for instance, Public Resource Code 4291 requires 100 feet of defensible space around a structure, but not exceeding the property line. Sometimes a local ordinance might have something in effect where they could require that. And if also to mention, if there is a local ordinance that's in effect, that would take precedent over PRC 4291. And then scrolling down, we also have an icon on here for municipal codes, just above the DSpace self-assessment. This you could look up and see if there's a local municipality that has any local ordinances. It's not that intuitive, so you kind of have to read through a lot of legal jargon, but if you want to search that, you can. And then going further down, before when I get a request for an inspection, either from a listing agent or a homeowner or seller, I always recommend that they go to our DSpace self-assessment. You could go ahead and click on it, Susan. So basically, it has all the requirements that we look for when we go out and do an inspection. And you could do your own self-assessment on the property to kind of get a head start before we go out there. Oftentimes when these properties are being sold, there's timelines that need to be met. And, taking this DSpace self-assessment could reduce that time needed. In case a property fails, they can't get compliance by the close of escrow. You could avoid all that by doing this DSpace self-assessment. And it's also useful just for, even if you don't have a property that's being sold, it's very helpful if you want to just assess your property, how it's going to fare against a fire. And you just enter in your information and whatnot. And it goes through all the requirements that we look for. So going back to our AB 38 page, who conducts an inspection? So obviously this goes back to our LRA, SRA, and FRA. If there's a local responsibility area and someone requests an inspection and it falls in, I'll use Auburn for an example. Again, if they request an inspection, that request will get forwarded automatically over to that jurisdiction, and then their inspectors will go ahead and take care of it. If they reside in the state responsibility area, when they submit a request, and I'll go over how to submit a request, it gets forwarded directly to CAL FIRE. In our case, in the Nevada Yuba Placer unit, our prevention officer receives all the requests. So clicking on the DSpace inspection request. So this is our fire.ca.gov/DSpace, a very useful site. answers pretty much any question relating to defensible space. But to request an inspection, if you look at the top left corner, it has to schedule an inspection, please use our defensible space inspection request form. You go ahead and a seller or seller's agent would fill this out, submit the request, and then we would get it a request on our end, and we would schedule a date and time to go out and complete that inspection for them.
Joseph,
Yeah.
did you say there was something in the upper left where somebody could actually click to request the inspection?
Yeah, so if you scroll down just a tiny bit where it says to schedule,
right
yeah,
there.
it's a
Okay.
hyperlink. It's not noticeable, but if you click on that, it'll bring you to another page. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It gives some information regarding if you want to double check and make sure your property resides in a high or very high fire hazard severity zone. Also has different counties that have different local ordinances. And then also, you just hit next, follow the prompts, enter in your information, and once we get the requests on our end, like I said, we'll schedule a time to go out and get that done for them. Okay, so continuing on, when to request an inspection. So, excuse me, if a property has a compliance notice that was done within the course of the last 6 months, they could utilize that inspection. They don't need to resubmit another inspection. So, and we have our mapping software through ArcGIS that keeps a database full of all the inspections that we do. And it's actually a rolling database to where all the years prior, we could look at all the inspections done on a property, structure attributes, water sources, pretty much everything. So it's pretty intuitive. Scrolling down, what about neighboring properties? So if you look at Public Resource Code 4291, it specifically says in the code that it's 100 feet away from any structures where the defensible space is required are up until the property line. Now there's exceptions to that. For example, insurance companies might be able to require past that property line, or maybe a local ordinance. But generally, we only look at that 100 feet are up until the property line. So if there is violations on a neighboring property, we would just go and do an inspection on that neighboring property if they have a structure within 100 feet of those violations.
And we have a whole document on the coalition website that I think most people are familiar with called "What About My 100 Feet" thing. It's 5 pages long, and it spells out very clearly what it all entails. So
yeah. So if you scroll down, more DSpace info is going to bring us back to the defensible space webpage. And like I said, this is updated constantly. If you scroll down, you could obviously see that they even mentioned the new Zone 0 ember resistant zone that could possibly take effect next year. And, it goes into detail on what the requirements of that is, but a few examples would be like combustible fencing within 5 feet, woody plants, outdoor furniture. CAL FIRE has been doing a lot of research with various laboratories, and it is a strict requirement, but it makes a huge impact, reducing that fuel load within 5 feet. So I always explain this to property owners, or when I go out and do these inspections, I try to illustrate the importance of this new Zone 0. Like I said, it's not required by law right now, but I definitely would recommend it. And any other dispensable space questions that you might have, you could just go and scroll through this. Also, if you scroll down to the bottom, Susan, under related links, you could look at PRC 4291, the actual code. We have a sample of our inspection report, which is the ALI 100A. You could go ahead and click on that, Susan. Sample ALI 100A English.
Oh, LE, okay.
So when we go out and do a defensible space inspection, this is the inspection report we fill out while we're on the property. So this is available to the public. If they want to, do kind of another self-assessment, they could do that. But yeah, pretty helpful.
So this is the one that you actually fill out when you go out.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And all of our other inspectors, yes.
Mm.
And that's pretty much it for AB 38. Yeah, the law is slightly there. It's a little confusing if you get into the code and what's required. But like I said, if you scroll up, Susan, I could give another resource for whoever might like it. So under additional AB 38 information or AB information bulletin, if you scroll up, the AB 38 bulletin. Scroll down
there.
right there.
Okay.
Yes, perfect. You got it. Thank you. This was issued by the state fire marshal, and it kind of answers. It's a Q&A regarding AB 38. So whatever I didn't cover today, it could possibly cover in this document. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Joseph.
welcome.
We're going to have Teresa in just a minute. You mentioned that you are the single one inspector for 4 different counties?
I'm the primary contact for
Okay.
real estate transactions. Now it's we have a lot of homes that are being sold in our unit. So
I was just wondering how they expect one person to be able to cover.
well, yeah, that's what I was saying. If there's an overflow of work, we have a bunch of great inspectors in our prevention office, and they're very knowledgeable and very helpful. They usually help out when they can, obviously.
Okay, great. So we'll save other questions until after Teresa's given her presentation from the remote, rather the real estate perspective. I'll stop sharing my screen here. And Teresa, if you would like to share your screen now, and we'll hear a little bit about AB 38 from a realtor's perspective. Teresa is the legislative representative on the Nevada County Board of Realtors. Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, let me get back to the beginning. Let's see, hold on a second. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, when AB 38 first passed, this caused a tremendous kerfluffle in real estate. You know, we had many meetings with the California Association of Realtors, legal counsel. The lead on that is Gov Hutchinson, to figure out how we all needed to be compliant with AB 38. So there's a lot of California Association of Realtors has a whole staff that all they do is engage in legislative issues. And then of course, the legal counsel deals with that. And so there's a lot, it's a kind of a complicated scenario. So I am the Legislative Affairs Chair of the Nevada County Association of Realtors. I'm a past president of the Nevada County Association of Realtors. At the California Association of Realtors, I am the chair of Land Use and Environmental Committee, which oversees a lot of this legislation within the body of our committee. And I am also on the Wildfire Insurance Working Group for the California Association of Realtors. So we have kind of a broad spectrum going on, you know, as far as experience. So as Joseph said, this AB 38 created this new law that basically stipulated that when you sell your property, if it's located in a high or very high fire severity zone, you'll need documentation of a compliance with the defensible space inspection. That law allowed that if the documentation demonstrating compliance could not be obtained, which is really a challenge when you have so few inspectors and not enough budget. Certainly CAL FIRE and the local jurisdictional agencies like Consolidated do not have any budget for this position to go out and do these inspections. This legislation passed without providing a budget to create those jobs for those inspectors. So it does allow the buyer to seek that clearance later. However, what we found from going through this very carefully with the various attorneys and the legal departments at the California Association of Realtors is that there were also some other issues with this law. So the jurisdictional enforcement authority for AB 38 in Nevada County is through the state, which is CAL FIRE. Nevada County has its own local hazardous vegetation ordinance that it enforces and completes inspections on daily. However, that ordinance is not tied to home sales as it is currently adopted. In other words, AB 38 is not a point of sale mandate in Western Nevada County. It is a point of sale mandate in Truckee. So there's two different parts of our county that have different and conflicting rules regarding point of sale mandates regarding AB 38. So Joseph already covered a lot of this stuff, so we'll skip through fairly fast unless anybody has any questions. But since we don't have a point of sale mandate in place, this does allow the buyer and seller to agree that who is going to take responsibility for this future clearance. So in order to address these concerns, we, the California Association of Realtors, we came out with a whole new disclosure, and that is called the FHDS, the Fire Hardening and Defensible Space Advisory Disclosure and Addendum. And it is provided to a buyer. The seller fills this out with their realtor, and it is provided if the property is located in a high or very high fire severity zone, and if the property is 1 to 4 units or a common interest development unit, such as a condominium or a manufactured home. It is also only provided if a transfer disclosure statement is also required in the transaction. And the standard exemptions for a transfer disclosure is if it's a probate, if it's a REO, which is a foreclosure, if it's a bankruptcy sale, or some different types of trusts are also exempted from a transfer disclosure. So when the realtor meets with the seller, they review whether this disclosure is actually required to be completed by that seller or not. So the next thing that we did and I'll look at that disclosure here in a minute, but the next thing that we did at the California Association of Realtors, because of some, shortcomings in the natural hazard disclosure statements, which is how we determine whether your property is in a very high fire, a high fire, or a wildland area. These are performed by a third-party company that's all they do. They prepare a report for each property. This is a state of California law that this be performed and given to the buyer. And so they use the state and FEMA maps to generate this report, which talks about flood zones, earthquake zones, and the fire zones. So the California Association of Realtors, in conjunction with the legislature, passed a new law that updates this disclosure to better handle the questions that were related to AB 38. So now,
Teresa, if I may say, we have about 4 minutes for you to finish up.
Oh, okay.
Another speaker.
Okay, so, and I'm happy, Susan, to send you samples of all these things,
That would be
for the
great.
presentation.
Thank you, wonderful.
So anyway, so we have updated these forms legislatively. So now you're going to get this notice, right? So this property is located in a state high or high fire severity zone. And then we fill out these forms with the sellers. So we ask the seller if they have done any fire hardening to the house. And then in the next section down there, defensible space and disclosure addendum, it actually asks them if they are or not, if they are in an area that has the local compliance requirements. And in Nevada County, mostly that is no. And then that is pretty much the end of what the seller needs to complete for their transaction. So, I mean, I know you got 4 minutes left. So I'll tell you what, I will send you the presentation and you guys can all review it. But basically, this is what the state of California's Real Estate Association has given us information-wise. And yes, people are getting different information between what CAR says and what they're sometimes being told by local fire agencies. So in CAR's opinion, there's there's 4 different options that are in the disclosure, and we just assist our sellers in filling out the disclosure to the best of their ability and following the law as we understand it. So that's it. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes?
I think we're going to hold questions. We have one more speaker, and
Oh,
then
okay.
if we got people hanging around, we will field those questions.
Okay, and Susan, I will send you the presentation. Thank you.
Teresa. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Yeah, Chris, hate to cut you off on your potentially last meeting here, but stand by. We'll get that answered. So up to our last speaker, we know, again, a lot of communities are recertifying, and we want to just start that conversation. Again, Pat will be back again, I believe, next month. But Pat, can you talk a little bit about action plans and the Firewise community recertifications?
Good evening,
Pat?
everybody. While I try to share my screen, which I think it's coming up. And thank you, Bonnie Lewis, for letting me share your dashboard. The first thing I'd like to let everybody know is that any Firewise communities interested in joining the Fire Safe Council at the Nevada County Fair to promote their communities, please reach out to Kate Benton or Billy Spearing and let them know a convenient time. So it's, Jamie put the address up earlier in the chat. So what I wanted to show you was that if you click on your Firewise community's name, which should be in purple, but it's not on mine, you'll be directed to the dashboard of your community. And on that dashboard, you will see your previous applications. You can go back and take a look at previous applications. You can open any one of them up and you'll be able to go through the whole document. You'll be able to find your previous risk assessment and your previous action plan and what you had done that particular year. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that, because a lot of people are taking a look at renewing. Let's see, I no longer see the chat, but I'll be putting the names of the 21 Firewise communities in the chat. And also on this dashboard, this is one place you can download the certificate, and you can also see the year that you need to renew an action plan or a risk assessment. So that's a very simple thing. But next, oops. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again, and this is what we're going to be looking at. This is the new CAL FIRE template for your action plans, and it is complete with all the directions and help that you need. And you can see that instead of just education and mitigation, you now have education and outreach, home hardening, fuel reduction, and evacuation planning and wildfire preparedness. So this is really a great option to the previous action plans where we each were doing something different. I want to thank everybody that's working with your Firewise communities, your leadership. I see many of you on here every single month, and a great shout out to the steering committee for the programs that you've been putting on and the timely information that you're giving everybody. So thank you. I'll put the information in the chat now that I can see it. Okay. There you go. And we'll talk more about it next time. Thank you very much.
Good. All right. So we appreciate those of you who have stuck around. We are going to open things up for questions. I'm going to start with Chris Riley. And before we hand the mic off to you, Chris, we understand that you are moving, and that is a sad one. So I wanted to just start by thanking you for years of service. I don't recall your full history. I believe you were a captain with fire. And since then, you have been on, every other committee, working group, and everything related to fire. And I know you've presented numerous times to this group and educating us on a variety of topics, including some very specialized knowledge of what we should be thinking about in our go bags and what to wear during fire. So, Chris, again, we just really wanted to thank you for your time and service to this community before I hand it off to you. Now the mic is yours, sir.
Thank you, Scott. I had a little feedback in the background, sorry. Been really an honor to be associated with you folks. I'm going to be moving out of state, so that's what's going on. And I had a question, well, maybe more of a comment for Teresa. I'm currently filling out one of those documents for it's the hazard, fire hardening defensible space disclosure and addendum. And am in escrow because I sold my home. And I have to share, I've never seen a form that has so many contradictions and it's convoluted. And when you go from one end to the other and that sends you back, if you toggle on one answer as a seller, it untoggles one that you meant to have as part of that process. So it puts the seller into positions that you have to make choices. And I started down the path of local jurisdiction because I'm with Nevada County Consolidated, my fire response area and district, but yet it is state responsibility area. So I called the fire marshal's office and they said, call CAL FIRE. And am I required to really have an inspection from a CAL FIRE inspector in a high hazard area? It's really hard for somebody, even with knowledge. I have some knowledge and that could be dangerous. But to be able to navigate this form, I can't imagine somebody who on the outside who doesn't really have some background or education in it to be able to navigate those forms and be successful at it without ending up in court later, because it causes more, I think it caused more problems than they're trying to solve in some ways. And I think it would, I'm sure the buyer on their end, when they see the form, the way we fill it out, will be confused, and that may cause some issues. But I understand the reason for it. The Caliber Realtors, there was a major lawsuit over somebody who bought a property in Cool was one of the issues. And the buyer got sued for, it was a $50,000 mitigation for the vegetation hazards that were discovered around the property after the sale. And so, of course, I think the realtor, the agents, the sellers and the buyers, everybody wants to come out of it clean, but this form, I think, is creating some serious, and I'm not an attorney, but I would say obviously written, somebody went to attorneys with this thing, because it's got some, the language and the way that it comes across, maybe the people that formed the document have a very good understanding of it, but it's really hard to navigate and to get it right from the seller standpoint. And I don't think I have any issues with my property in particular. I've cleared it, and I've had defensible space inspection from an advisor. I'm an advisor myself, and I feel it's a very strong property in that regard. I don't have any fears or issues with it but a buyer may. You never know how people are going to view something once they see it. And the answers that I'm toggling on there, it's like it forces you to answer issue to items that you don't agree with. So I don't want to get redundant or repetitive, but it's an important document to have. I think it's necessary. Because it does alleviate a lot of problems and but man, it's hard to navigate and get through. And I've held it for 2 days because I've been questioning what some of the answers were on disclosure as to who the local jurisdiction is or who is the authority. Because the document tells you to get an authorized inspection, but it doesn't tell you from whom, because there are many different areas and they're trying to blanket the state with it. But it's like there needs to be links in it that point you in the right direction, especially if you're not knowledgeable. Anyway, so I thought I'd just, comment on that for Teresa. I don't know if she needs to respond. It's almost, but that's the experience I'm having with it.
I do have a
So
question
Chris,
for you, Chris.
Yeah, let's kick it over to Teresa for comment and then press on. So Chris, again, thanks for that question. And then I want to make sure you saw that you got some kudos in the chat here. So thanks again for being here and for what you do.
So Chris, we just completely redid that form to have 4 pages now instead of 2. Is the form that you actually have, the 4-page form that has the tree, the last 2 pages are a tree that gives you more information about how to properly fill that form out? And then also, I know as for myself, before I ever list a property, I actually order a natural hazard disclosure so that my client is reviewing the natural hazard disclosure with all the linkages while they fill out that form.
Yeah, we did the natural hazard disclosure. And on the form, yes, it has a tree on it. One of the issues with it, though, is it comes through DocuSign, and there are parts of it where there are check boxes I can't check. And on the DocuSign, it's like it's almost like I want to print it out and then fill it out in ways that I feel, because it leaves questions open, or it puts me, the seller, in a position where, and it does allow for the seller and the buyer to agree for it to be inspected after the fact, after the sale. But I think this whole thing's better if you get it cleared up beforehand and everybody's on the same page with that and agrees, you know.
So let's take away that it is a confusing form, and if Chris has been involved in a lot of these things and is someone we would consider an expert, my guess is there are many others, and I've already seen a couple in the chat from Kayla and others. So Teresa, if we could just ask you to take that as the takeaway, and then maybe Chris, if you could connect directly with her outside of this to get into some of the nuts and bolts of DocuSign and such things.
That form should not be filled out on DocuSign.
So we're going to press on with,
yeah.
We're going to press on. So if you guys want to connect on nuts and bolts in line 72B, page 7, paragraph 4, section C, I'll let you handle that offline. We've got a couple questions in here in the chat. So if you want to speak at the supervisors meeting, there is a public comment period immediately following the presentation of a topic. That is at 1:30 p.m. Just show up. You're going to show up, 10 minutes early, but there's no need to apply in advance or anything like that. So great question, Patricia, but just be there. That's about it. And then what else did we say up here? About it. Any other, where do we, OES, where do they go to submit the application for the $3,500 grants?
And Jeff put that link in the chat.
Yeah, the link's posted in the chat.
Fantastic. So, Prissa, hopefully you found that there. Anyone else want to unmute, ask a question while we still have many of our speakers with us live? All right, well, I know how this goes. As soon as we stop the recording, everyone will get really honest and ask lots of questions. So Virginia, if we could shut the recording down and then really get down to business. Thanks everyone for coming. Again, next month, more on Firewise recertification, and more content and more experts from our community trying to keep you safe. So thanks for being here, everyone.